Mr. Driscoll, congratulations on your nomination. Thank you for your past service and for the willingness of you and your family to continue to serve this country. I want to start by expressing my condolences as the chair and ranking member on the loss of lives last night, those members of the military who were lost, as well as everyone lost in that air tragedy. And according to the Army's fiscal year 2024 accident or mishap assessment that was just released this month, 2024 had the most Class A flight mishap rates per 100,000 hours since 2007. So what will your strategy be to try and keep training flights out of harm's way?
Senator, to echo your remarks, it is an absolute tragedy. I think I'm seeing the same thing. I believe you are on television. So it's an accident that seems to be preventable from what we can tell today. That should not happen. I think a focus from the top down on a culture of safety. There are appropriate times to take risk and there are inappropriate times to take risk. I don't know the details around this one, but sure. After doing it, if confirmed, and working with this committee to figure out the facts, I think we might need to look at where is an appropriate time to take training risk, and it may not be near an airport like Reagan.
Well, thank you. As I'm sure you know, historically, the Secretary of the Army has unique homeland defense responsibilities, and it's especially critical in times of crises. So, at the direction of the Army Secretary, you could direct that the National Guard be available to coordinate with civilian authorities on airspace. Is this something that you will be willing to consider and to work with civilian authorities?
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you. I want to follow up on your conversation with Senator Fisher because, as you know, most of the capabilities that we've provided to Ukraine come from Army stock or Army programs. Abrams tanks, anti-air and anti-armor weapons, long-range strike and guided multiple rocket launchers. And the National Security Supplemental that Congress passed last year is providing real relief to the U.S. industrial base, including in New Hampshire, where we have a significant defense industrial base. If confirmed, will you ensure that Army stockpiles can meet our national security requirements? And will you include in your budget and supplemental request to Congress enough funding to replenish the defense industrial base?
Senator, as I told your colleague, I think this is one of the great problems facing our time in getting our munition and getting our magazines back up to where they need to be. I think we need to use this moment to figure out how do we create sustainable, scalable solutions so that if in the future we need to tap back into those stockpiles, how do we get them to scale even faster? And so I commit to working with your office to both get us to where we need to be to replace what we've used in Ukraine or to what we've had our friends using in Ukraine, but then also to get lessons learned from that we can record so that we are ready to go if we need to for a threat like China.
Well, thank you. One of the things we talked about when we met in my office was some of the challenges, those exact challenges. One of the companies I mentioned was L3 and their development of EMVGBs, the night vision goggles that have been so important to the Army. You talked about improving the Army's ability to project what it needs over the long term. One of the challenges that we've had with the EMVGBs is that the Army budget requests have been up and down over the years. They've not been consistent despite positive feedback from our warfighters. So how will you commit to dealing with that kind of budget inconsistency, and how will you address it? What kinds of things, strategies are you thinking to address it?
Senator, I think this is the perfect kind of topic where, if confirmed, working with this committee to find solutions for funding. This is a problem that includes a lot of different parties. And I think a level of transparency and inclusion and planning will be helpful. It will, as the Army does things like IVAS and maybe expanding away from some of the previous technologies that it used, I think we have to keep our eye on what has worked in the past and keep our hybrid of maintaining and refurbishing some of the old technologies to kind of smooth out the transition to the new ones. And I look forward to working with your office on these kind of topics if confirmed.
Well, thank you very much. As you point out, we're not going to be able to replenish the stockpiles that we're losing if we don't have a strategy for how to deal with this long term and ensure that our companies that are so critical to that replenishment are engaged in that conversation. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.